Safin and Zao from Bond, Scar from The Lion King, and Voldemort from Harry Potter, they have more than just a villainous streak in common. They're all disabled or have a visible difference. With the Roald Dahl sensitivity debate just settling down, it made me think, should we look at how disabled or those with visual differences are portrayed on the big screen? Come with me while we unpack the disabled villain trope.
When I realised that I haven't ever seen anybody else like me who looks different as a love interest, growing up, I started to believe that maybe it would never be possible for me to be in a romantic relationship. And so it really impacted me because I thought that actually I don't fit society's ideal version of beauty, so I'll never be able to be in a relationship myself.
James Bond has been a much loved British staple, but it doesn't matter if you're a wheelchair user or have a visible difference like Mark or Scar, you're probably the bad guy. At the time of filming this, there's 25 Bond films, and if we just take a look at how many villains have a visible difference there is...
Emilio Largo, eye patch, Thunderball. Ernst Stavro Blofeld, Scar, you only live twice. Ernst Stavro Blofeld, cut off earlobes on Her Majesty's Secret Service. Alec Trevelyan, facial scarring, GoldenEye. Zao, shiny diamond scar, Die Another Day. Chiffre, left eye scar, Casino Royale. Raoul Silva, mouth and cheek difference, Skyfall. Ernst Stavro Blofeld, Scar, Spectre. Safin, facial scarring, No Time to Die.
By my calculations, that's 9 films, which is 36% total. And there's more if you include characters like Jaws and Oddjob who are less visibly different. But it's not just 007. Unfortunately, the Disney classics we all know and love aren't so innocent with their depictions of disabled characters either. For example, Captain Hook from Peter Pan and Scar from The Lion King, their character arcs are so entwined with their differences, it's literally their names. These characters have a tragic backstory that provides their narrative with an explanation of their difference, as well as a reason as to why they're evil. Paul K. Longamore summarises in an essay titled "Why I Burnt My Book and Other Essays on Disability" that giving disabilities to villainous characters reflects and reinforces 3 common prejudices against handicapped people. That disability is a punishment for evil. Disabled folks are resentful of their fate and also resent non-disabled people and would, if they could, destroy them. Some of these tropes are seen as subtle, but if they are so overt, then why does it matter? Well, disabled students are 2 to 3 times more likely to be bullied than their non-disabled classmates. The disabled villain trope can encourage fear of disabilities and difference, while simultaneously championing those who fight against the evil.
I think the most common way that I think scripts are written involving people with visible differences is with scars and with that being linked to some kind of, whether it's, I don't know, some kind of criminal activity or some villainous backstory that the character may have. And then those scars are then linked to being a negative character. And that just leaves that impression that being different makes you a bad person.
Representation of disabilities and difference is really important. However, disabled characters are rarely portrayed by disabled actors and are often portrayed in super stereotyped ways, even if they aren't villains. Let's take, for instance, Sia's film called Music, where Maddie Ziegler plays an autistic person. And unless you were asleep during 2021, then you probably know about the outcry from autistic advocates and neurodiversity activists across the globe. Mainly due to the inaccurate and exaggerated representations of autism and that the character wasn't played by an autistic person. The same could be said for 2016 movie Split, where experts have since come out to say that it harmed those with dissociative identity disorder. The protagonist, played by James McAvoy, is portrayed as being as dangerous, unstable, and harmful towards others, which has since been debunked as being inaccurate about those living with DID. Now on to the most beloved, visibly different protagonist, in my opinion, Quasimodo. You can't help but root for him, but alas, despite being an absolute sweetheart, he just can't get the girl at the end of the film.
There was actually a survey done that found that 15% of people with visible differences have seen someone with a scar or mark as the love interest, which I actually think is quite a low amount, really, which just highlights the lack of representation that there is. I think even when there are people with visible differences in films like this, it's almost like they somehow need to change to actually become a love interest or to become desirable or accepted.
But the survey found that nearly double have seen depictions of characters with a visible difference cast as a villain. So Quasimodo not ending up as a love interest, unfortunately, just isn't that surprising. So I had to sit down with Changing Faces advocate Bronwyn to unpack this a bit further.
My name's Bronwyn, and I have a visible difference myself. And I'm a campaigner for a charity called Changing Faces, who basically support anyone in the UK with a scar, mark or condition that affects their appearance, and gives them sort of emotional support, but also they campaign to make a fairer world for those who live with visible differences as well. More often than not, people with visible differences are cast as villains in films or people that are seen to be feared. And I can't actually think of many, if any, films at all that actually have a positive representation of those who look different. But this just leaves the impression that having a scar or mark that does affect your appearance and makes you look different, that just you automatically are a bad person, but this is just not true. The most common way that I think scripts are written involving people with visible differences is with scars and with that being linked to some kind of, whether it's, some kind of criminal activity or some villainous backstory that the character may have. And then those scars are then linked to being a negative character. And that just leaves that impression that being different makes you a bad person. I feel like by casting people with visible differences as villains, it puts negative ideas into people's minds, and society then has really negative connotations attached to those who look different, which then makes it difficult when people who are different are trying to sort of integrate themselves into society and just be able to live their everyday life, because it then means that they're subject to a lot of prejudice and discrimination. People face comments and stares, and even personally, I've been compared to Voldemort multiple times. That's something that's always stuck with me, because that's just how someone with a similar appearance is presented in film, and this, sadly, I've heard of this happening to a lot of other people with visible differences as well. So just by having that negative representation, it's making society actually quite uneducated about what it's actually like to live with a visible difference, and it sort of makes them attach all these negative connotations to it. This trope that is being used is almost now being normalised, which is why I think it is quite difficult for society to move on from it, because it's been used for such a long time, and the fact that it is more normalised now is why it's difficult for people to sort of change their views of people with visible differences. People are starting to appear on screen that do have visible differences. I think that will also be a way of breaking down the barriers, whether they are playing the hero or the love interest, or even just an incidental character who's just there but happens to have a visible difference. It's really important that there is this representation, not only for the individual who may have the visible difference themselves, but for society to just be aware that that people with visible differences aren't always, or more often than not, they are not bad people. They're just like you and me, and it's important to have this representation so that society is able to become more accepting, and hopefully then it will reduce the discrimination that people have to face, and just if people are more educated about what it's actually like to be different, then hopefully it will make people who are different feel more comfortable and accepted.